All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining our four-year Registrar Roundtable. Sorry, I was a couple of minutes late. I had a little bit of a technical difficulty getting into the room, but I am here now. I am Mary Ellen Hanna from the University of Alabama. Had the facilitator for this session I guess not be able to participate today due to weather, so I am filling in. And this is really meant to be kind of a roundtable, birds of a feather type session to get the 4 years together and just discuss, I guess, hot topics. So I will just try to facilitate. If anybody has a topic that they would like, you can send it in the messages or unmute yourself. I believe everybody is muted right now, but one that was brought to me when I was asked if I would facilitate, so I'll just throw this out there and get us started, is how has the last week of weather impacted everybody's operations or changed what you have been doing? I know the pandemic has probably already changed everything for everybody. So if you have anything to add regarding the last week or the last bit of weather and how that's impacted operations, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself, and we'll try to have a engaging conversation.
Well, I'll start off. This is Deanna Adams. I'm from Rhodes College in Memphis, Tennessee, and we're now back remote, fully remote, because our city has no water and our college has no water, and we've had to relocate our students to hotels in the local suburban areas. So in addition to trying to work with a shortened semester, we're now losing several more days due to the weather and the after effects of the weather. So it's been an interesting semester so far.
Deanna, can you say what city you're in again?
Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, our faculty are stressed, our students are stressed, and our staff are trying to work from home with limited abilities, to say the least.
Yeah, I think, you know, the guidance we've been given, of course, is you still have the contact hours to meet. And so, you know, now the faculty are having to figure out how they're going to make that work and get those contact hours in and the assignments in and everything else. So yeah, it's pretty stressful across the board. It was already stressful for faculty to begin with, just doing the online learning component, even though some have been doing it, but that's stress already, and then now this on top of it. So, oh, I'm sorry, I'm Melissa with Texas State.
Okay, sorry. I'm trying to read the messages and listen at the same time. We've already had another topic brought up here in the messages regarding commencement and diplomas, about handing out diplomas immediately after the commencement ceremony and how long it takes to award degrees. I can speak for the University of Alabama and just say quickly that we do not hand out live diplomas at commencement. Our sign-off period is about 2.5 weeks after the end of the term. And then at that point, all of our degrees are either awarded or denied, who all has applied. And then diplomas are shipped within 10 days of that sign-off deadline to students.
At Montevallo, we do hand out live diplomas at commencement. We're a little bit smaller, so for the whole year, we have about 700 graduates. So we require final grades for all candidates on the Wednesday of finals week. And then we process all the way to the end of the week, and then hand out those diplomas on either Friday night or Saturday, depending on when commencement is.
This is Jenny Bobbitt from High Point University, and we do the same pretty much. It's a challenging week, the week before commencement in our office, and that continues into the next week as we do end of term processing and so forth. But we hand out approximately, I would say, with graduate students as well, about 1,000 to 1,200 diplomas. We didn't do it this past year, of course. We mailed them out, and that was another exciting experience, to say the least.
Okay. Sorry, I'm still trying to catch up here. We still have people asking about diplomas and number of folks that are processing. We've gotten some answers to that going in the chat. People saying 2 people processing, but we've got another question coming in regarding the use of gender and legal sex in Banner 9. So does anybody have a response to how they are using gender and legal sex in Banner 9?
I don't know if this will answer the question for them. This is Melissa with Texas State, but we do have in Banner 9 the student profile, and we allow the students to go in to put in their preferred pronoun and their preferred gender. But because of how the coordinating board is for state reporting, we still do have to have the legal sex of male or female. But we do allow them to do the preferred gender in the Banner 9. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Yeah, that's a big help. Thanks.
Okay, sorry, with so many people commenting, I'm going to circle back here to the diploma. It looks like a lot of people have responded there about how they're handling diplomas and how many people they have processing, but we've got another question regarding how campuses deal with the evaluation of international transfer credit from Chinese summer programs. Started seeing an increase in requests for summer transient credit from these programs and are concerned about the validity, given that although the institutions are recognized by the Ministry of Education, the programs are not. 3 programs specifically mentioned in this question: Lions, ONPS, and CS Summer. I am not familiar with those programs specifically, so if somebody in the audience is familiar with those.
Hi, this is Karen from University of Miami. I'm not specific with those 3 programs, but last year we went through a whole internal audit over international courses, specifically those out of China, and we've put guidelines for our students that they have to be a minimum of 4 weeks because we found students were trying to take a full semester's worth of courses in 4 weeks. And so we've really beefed up our requirements for any courses coming out of really anywhere, but specifically we were looking at the programs in China, the summer ones and the winter programs. So we've looked at, like what is realistic to meet the hours and the learning objectives. So again, I don't know those specific 3 programs, but they're probably very similar to the ones we encountered.
Did that help with that question? I hope. Okay. Another
Mary Ellen, this is Kim. Can I do something to help? Maybe, is there any way I can help you kind of with the questions and things like that?
Sorry, I was trying to read through and see what topic.
Yeah, I understand. It gets difficult.
There's a lot of responses still to the diploma and commencement question coming in. But I'm not sure if I've missed anything here of what someone is asking.
I think that I can capture the chat and share that. Also, this session's being recorded, so you can come back and listen to it.
Okay, the next
Just
question.
let me know if I can help, Mary Ellen.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm
Oh, it's
trying to
okay.
catch up here. It's just everybody. I guess the next question that I saw, unless I have missed somebody, was regarding the return to operations for fall of 21, and if schools have announced what their plans are and if they return to normal operations. I see Emily from JSU says they will be back to normal operations for fall 21. UNCW plans on being more normal and bring back more face-to-face. And then ECU back to normal operations in fall of 21. Rice is already back to normal.
No, normal fall 21.
Fall 21, okay. So it looks like everyone is attempting to get back to normal operations for fall of 21. Is that kind of the general, the general consensus? All right, so the next question I'm seeing after skipping from the fall 21 operations is how and when students apply for graduation. At the University of Alabama, that's an online process. We have 2 terms of graduation open at a time. And so in many cases, they're applying several months in advance of the term in which they intend to graduate. And it is the student's responsibility to apply to graduate, to let us know that they do intend to graduate. And then if they do not, they have to reapply for a subsequent term. We do not roll applications forward from term to term. Longwood University says after a student has completed 75 credits, OU rolls grad applications over. LSU the semester before. Are there any schools that the students do not have to apply for graduation? They're automatically awarded?
If there are, I want your number.
Someone says Elon does automatically, but I don't know if we have anybody from Elon in the room.
I'll tell you from High Point University, this is Jenny Bobbitt again. Our students, we are on a colleague system. And so while there is a self-service option for that, we don't have that up and running right now. So we are still quote unquote paper pencil, but I have a Google Doc form that I have students apply through so that I can keep track of everything. We award 3 times a year. And so I just basically monitor that application process throughout the year, opening it up at certain times of the year for students to apply, we send out urge to apply messages. It's a constant work in progress, is what I like to call it. So there's not an absolute 100% definite process. I tweak it here and there. For whatever the term needs, so.
Okay, and we have one more comment there from WVU about rolling applications forward to the next cycle if they don't complete during that term that they've applied for. I think we have caught up. At least there's still some comments coming in regarding topics we've hit, but I think unless I have missed something, that I've caught all the questions that people have submitted so far. Any other questions or topics? If we want to circle back a minute to the Chinese, I'll throw out a topic that's of interest to me, which would be the conversion of credits. If anyone has conversion of international credits, if anyone has some advice to offer there, specifically ECTS credits. We have always had a standard conversion that we have applied to those, and recently we have started getting a lot of pushback about that conversion and saying that these international experiences and courses are worth more credit than we're awarding. So I'm wondering, I guess, kind of back on that topic before, how people may be enforcing those, or if there are standards, or if you look at international credits and transcripts on a case-by-case basis or differently, depending on where they're coming from or what the program is.
Well, for Rhodes, and we're a small private liberal arts college, so we use a standard ECTS. For every one ECTS, it's a half a semester of credit. And I think that's pretty much domestically standard. However, we occasionally have a student who may go to a non-English speaking institution and take all of their classes in a language other than English. And in those particular cases, we very often give them more credits than what the standard process would award. That's based on pushback from our language department. And just last week, I received some pushback from our physics department about a physics course that was only offering 5 ECTS credits. And their stance is this is worth a lot more than 2.5 semester credits. So my guess is we're gonna award more credits for that particular class as well. But we do the standardized, and then if we have pushback, we deal with those on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, thank you. And it looks like we've got a comment from MTSU saying that Wes, based on how Wes was evaluating courses, they changed from half to 0.67, which is interesting. I was not aware of that, or aware of Wes treating them that way. Okay, now we have a new question coming in. For schools that offer courses at multiple campuses, but students aren't allowed to register and take courses across these different campuses, how do you handle preventing registration of campuses, setting up campus registration restrictions, including or excluding other ideas? Or is this is it a non-issue that students register across multiple campus codes? That's coming from Megan. If Megan, you want to speak about that?
Yeah, just kind of curious if other people's experience. We don't allow I'm from Virginia Tech. We don't want students to take classes at multiple campuses, but putting campus level restrictions on like all CRN seems kind of extreme to exclude for banner schools. Or so anyway, just curious, yeah, if anybody has any experience with that. I'm wondering how much of an issue it even is.
I guess, can I ask why you don't allow them to take multiple campuses?
That's a fair question. I asked the same thing. It's an allocation of resources. Not to mention, we're not talking about like a student can't take an online class plus in a certain specific campus. It's more like Northern Virginia folks, they wouldn't really have a need to register and take classes in Blacksburg necessarily, and they want to allocate resources, and people are admitted into some specific programs up in the Innovation Campus in Northern Virginia. So that's kind of the inspiration. Just doing some preliminary fact finding.
at ORU, something I don't recommend doing, but what we've been doing is for our separate campuses, we actually have separate terms for those campuses. So students are just used to just going to their term rather than putting a campus restriction on every single CRN. I don't necessarily recommend it depending on your processes, because I'm trying to get away from separate terms in which I would need to do the campus restrictions on all the CRNs, but that's where we're at right now.
There's a couple of responses there in the chat too, Megan, regarding campus level codes and how you can enroll in the main campus versus the other campuses there from OU.
Okay, thanks. We do have separate campus codes as well. But anyway, if anybody happens to be handling this well or knows that it's not an issue and wouldn't mind chatting with me at some point, I'm Megan Coulter at Virginia Tech. Would love to hear from you.
All right, and Sally's sending a new question and also getting a shout out to her fireplace back behind her. I have a space heater running under my desk, which is not quite as pretty as flames behind me. New question, anyone have a good handle on the VA's July 1 changes in GI Bill eligibility, a number of new scenarios, students programs ineligible for the GI Bill, and one most concerning about payment due as of first day of term seems to render students ineligible if they are using a payment plan. And Sally, you may have something to add to the question before people start responding, but.
Well, a group of folks got together and thought that all of the new things rendered students ineligible, like tuition waivers for grad students and that sort of thing. But most of the scenarios include language saying unless, or specifying that it only applies if the decision about whether a student is eligible for, let's say, a tuition waiver is dependent on their not being a veteran. So I think most of the initial concern on my campus has calmed down, but we are worried about the language that says any students who have a balance due on the first day may not be eligible. I can't believe that's true because I think most of us offer payment plans, but we haven't been able to latch on to any kind of exception language, and it would surely calm down a lot of my comments if you guys have found anything like that. Or even if you just want to let me know whom we could call at your campus.
Mary Ellen, this is Cheryl Gray from Parsons. I've also been a school certifying official as long as I've been registrar, and the new regulations are very disturbing. When they originally came out with their webinar in October, the first rule was that if they have not paid anybody, no matter who they are, you know, veteran, student, if they had not paid by the 15th day of the semester, then they were considered a supported student, and that hurts your ratio because the VA says you can't have more than 85% supported students in a program, and if you do, then you cannot. If anyone applies to be in that program, you have to deny them benefits. So we were very, very concerned about that. Well, then the next webinar, which was in November, they backed off of that 15-day, and now they're at a 30-day. Which is still very problematic because you have to file your 15% report by the 30th day. So it takes, you know, and having your IT folks program who owes and who doesn't know. And I asked my ELR if, you know, I've got so many students on a payment plan. We don't put a lot of pending aid on until the end of the semester for a variety of our types of aid. So all of those students would have to be considered supported. So I was told to contact people that could lobby for us, and my school's private, so I contacted my Deanna knows. I contacted KUA, and they did some research into it too. So that's one thing. And I asked my ELR, I said, what happens if, we're out of compliance? And she said, you don't want to know. So the other thing they've done recently is if a student withdrew or failed a course for non-attendance or whatever, changed their schedule after the first date of the term, the debt for the owing back to the VA was always back on the student. So the student had to take care of that debt. Now, with its new legislation, they've put it on the school. So if a student withdraws, if a student fails a class for non-attendance, then that means a debt is owed to VA and is on the school to return it to the VA, which means that we will debit the student's account, which also means if the student never returns, we may never see that money. So there's a lot of stuff going on with the VA that is very, very concerning. And, if your Veterans Office should be well aware of it, but I would just say, contact somebody, contact a legislature, contact somebody that could help us change this, because the burden of all of this is way more on us, like everything else, than it used to be.
And the other side of that new debt creation thing is that the VA has more payment options than we do. And so where if a student drops a course in the middle of the semester to save their GPA, and the VA creates a debt and works with them to get that tuition back, if we have to pull that whole tuition out and send it back to the students, then that's going to prevent them from registering for the next semester if they're not able to pay that all in the next 6 weeks, where with the VA, they could probably work out a payment plan for a few months. And so it doesn't seem to be in the student's best interest. It really kind of turns us into a collection agency. And unfortunately, it's going to force some of us to have to either say no or adjust some of our policies specifically for those VA students.
Hi, I'm Jody Torres with UT Austin. I'm also a certifying official. I wanted to jump in and say we're having some of these same concerns about what's happening. I do know that in some of the more recent chats coming out of the West Coast, conversations were had, just wanting to share this as we talk about sharing information up the pipeline, that apparently one of the guiding principles or what guided this new change, especially as it regards to debt, was the fact that schools were not employing enough SEOs. And so the 30-day, this is just what I'm hearing. So that 30 days, I saw Amanda's face. So that 30 days where we're supposed to be reporting things in compliance, apparently a number of schools are not able to keep up with this. I heard this was a real issue out of California, and I heard this initially coming out of California. And so this was creating debt in a way that I guess the VA was thinking was not appropriate because schools weren't able to keep on top of their reporting. So apparently that is part of what sparked this. I know I'm not the only school at times where we've had conversations about, do we have enough people? We have discussions across with other campuses about that too. But Sally, I do want to say the initial about the July 1 had not been a big concern for us right now as the doggone debt situation has been for us. That's been a real concern.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And it looks like the chat has actually slowed down now for a minute. Does anyone, if anyone has any additional questions, feel free to send those in the Cheryl. It's asking if you would share your contact information.
Which information? Takua or which one? Oh, just me. Yeah, me. Sure, I will.
You.
Yeah, I will. I'm putting it in now.
I guess a question, I'll circle back kind of to the initial question about the weather and how that's impacted operations, and then circle back to the pandemic for a minute and ask, I guess, successes or failures or changes in operations that are going to be permanent changes as a result of the pandemic, and how your institution has had to respond to the pandemic. I noticed in the question about returning to normal operations, everybody seems to be, the general consensus there in the comments seemed to be that everybody was aiming towards normal operations for fall of 21. But I wonder if necessity of the pandemic has changed the way people intend to operate in what you would call a normal capacity come fall 2021.
This is Christine from Oral Roberts University. And I will say for us, we've actually been back to normal since last fall, or some semblance of normal. So we've been back in class, in session since fall of 20. And so we only went virtual for the end of spring and then most of summer. And I will say office wise, if you're wanting to know like office, how that's worked, really our processes stayed mostly the same. We had made a big push to get electronic and get away from paper a couple years ago. And so that really helped to aid us in being able to transition to being virtual. We still have staff members that from time to time will go virtual. We just had a big weather thing here in Oklahoma and Midwest. So we were virtual for 2 weeks just because of the weather, and we were able to keep going. I think the biggest thing that's changed as a university is that we now have, in addition to our online campus, which offers totally asynchronous, online classes, we now have an option for residential classes to be taken virtually, which for us, what that looks like is they're synchronous, the students zooming in, participating in the class with classmates. And that's something that I think, although there isn't, an absolute consensus as to how long that's going to be around, that seems to be something that's going to kind of solidify in as an option for students. We have a very residential heavy campus where we, a lot of people in residence. And so that's just a different option of something that's come about for us as another modality of offering classes that I think probably is going to stick around for a while.
Hey all, my name is Sam Sullivan. I'm from Coastal Carolina University. And just to weigh in on what we've done here, we're still kind of a hybrid model since the fall is really when we went to the full hybrid model. We do have some classes that are in person. Some of those courses, the instructor will stream for students if they don't want to come in. We also have our normal distance, which is asynchronous. We have streaming, which is kind of distance, but we consider that synchronous, and the students and the faculty will stream. We have a few courses that needed to be in person, like labs, where you can't stream that, you have to be in the class. And obviously we're limiting the number of students who are registered. And then we're also, we have our normal hybrid model, which we've been doing for several years, where we teach a little bit in class and then the rest is fulfilled online. And then our normal face-to-face classes, no streaming whatsoever. We're hoping to go back to our quote normal in the fall and get rid of the streaming and the like the synchronous type of stuff. We're trying to move away from streaming. As for some good things that came out of it, I know in my office, we have kind of moved to more electronic forms. A lot of our forms were paper, and when we moved to remote last spring, we had to do pretty much everything via email. So we've learned and pushed quickly to more user-friendly electronic forms, and we're just rolling ever since with that. We're trying to limit the amount of students and people who come into our office physically, and help them and have them be able to do stuff directly from their computer in their residence hall, at home, in their office, wherever it may be. So some good things have come out of it, and we're hoping to continue with that transformation to the digital world.
Okay. And sort of related to the pandemic, Sally entered a question here regarding pass-fail grading. And I think whether or not you're extending pass-fail grading into the fall term. We've got several responses there regarding not extending the deadline, some that did it in the summer and in the spring, but don't intend to do it beyond. Is there something else to that question, Sally, that you want to add?
Nope, that's very helpful to see what people put in the chat. Thank you.
And then, okay, so we've got 10 minutes left, and I think the only question that I've missed so far, a question came in while we were discussing the pandemic regarding military credit and ACE evaluations. A couple of people have shared policy or experience there. Does anybody have, the question was, sorry, how many schools are awarding the total number of credit hours recommended by ACE, or whether or not you have a separate calculation there to determine the number of credits that you award? I will say at UA, we don't, I can send you the UA policy, but we don't allow duplication of credit. So if the same credit has been awarded or been recommended more than once, we don't duplicate the credit, and we have a limit to the number of military science credits that we will award.
Mary Ellen, this is Kim. I have a question.
Yes.
So we've had a lot of issues with modality. I'm sure everybody knows what that word means. It's one you don't want to ever hear again. So our issue has been our definition, I think, has not been clear, and has caused a lot of issues with pricing, because courses are priced based on modality, fully online, traditional, and then the hybrid definition is where only a portion of the course is face-to-face, but it's a small percentage and it's a low threshold, where a course can be called hybrid but still meet the definition of hybrid, but be almost totally online. So I'd be interested in if people might share your modality definitions. That would be awesome. I'd be interested to hear what some of them are and how, if this is an issue on your campus.
Kim, at ORU, we have what we consider fully online courses offered. We actually have a separate campus for online. They are asynchronous. They do not have set meeting times. They meet in a 7-week shortened term format. And they are priced completely different. It's a different price structure and everything like that. Our residential students are not automatically allowed to take those classes during the fall and spring semester. They have to petition to take them, and they are charged extra. We are a block tuition charging institution for fall and spring. So our residential classes are block, whereas our online are per credit hour. So they actually pay extra for those online classes if they choose to take them in that modality. Summer is kind of a free-for-all. Students can take online, residential, whatever they want. In the summer, it's not a traditional semester, so that's why that's treated differently. But our other course modalities, we've had always just the traditional on-campus, in-class, you're attending all your classes. And then we've added this virtual modality is what we're calling it. Basically, we've classified that as it has to be actually synchronous. The students have to be logging in with the professor, meeting in a, at a particular time. And those are being certified as virtual is how we're classifying them. So therefore, they're essentially considered residential classes, but the student's not attending in person.
I see.
And the cost is the same as our residential. They pay no different for our virtual classes than they are for our residential. The only difference is they're not sitting in the classroom, they're sitting in a dorm room or home on a computer.
We
Thank you.
deal by student type. So, you know, our undergraduate traditional, which have traditionally been the residential, they can take 3 online and 1 on ground, but because they're traditional, they are charged a flat rate for tuition from 12 to 17. Then all of our graduate programs are, you know, nursing is different than business, business is different than education, et cetera. So they have a student type. We do have a degree completion program for adult students. They've got a different student type. All of theirs are online. They are billed and charged differently. So we don't do it by modality. We do it by how the student is classified.
Kim, is the main quandary with respect to billing and needing to distinguish populations for the purpose of distinct billing?
Yeah, it is. For the most part, it certainly is.
The only reason I ask is because Vanderbilt, we dealt with it several years ago, and when we dealt with it having a long history, even up until the present, of a mostly traditional instructional delivery climate, with a few exceptions in nursing and so forth. But we did come up with some very precise definitions of modalities by class, by individual class section and course, but none of that emerged in the context of billing conundrums. But it's publicly available. I'll put it in our chat, but here again, it's probably not very helpful.
Thank you very much to everybody who's done that. I appreciate it.
So down to the last 4 minutes here, I see 2 other questions that have come in. One regarding ACE recommendations and alternate forms of credit, like straighter line. I haven't seen any responses to that. I can say for UA, we don't accept straighter line. We still say it has to be from a regionally accredited, credit from a regionally accredited institution. We don't take ACE recommendations except for military credit. And then I will let, there seem to be a lot of responses going on here regarding electronic signatures and what people will accept. Some references to DocuSign, some allowing email during the pandemic if it came from, I guess, an institutional email address. So in the last 2 minutes, if anybody has anything to add on either of those topics or responses for those participants, and I will at the end of this try to save out the chat.
Thank you. Thanks for doing that.
With the recording, if that's helpful, because we got a lot of good responses going in the chat.
Certainly did. And before we end this, just an overall impression from everyone about the morning, the SACRAO sessions this morning and how this has gone for you, logging in, getting into a session. How do you like this format? We have over 800 people registered for the conference. So I think that's speaking volumes about what the membership wants. So thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. Great.
All right. It looks like people are starting to, you got a lot of thumbs up there. So I think everybody has been satisfied so far, and you're getting a lot of likes and excellence in the comments, in the very active comments. So a few more comments coming in addition to thanks about straighter line and other types of credit. And it seems the general consensus there is that most are not accepting those. But again, thank you everybody for chatting, for keeping the conversation going, for sharing your insights. And the session has been recorded. And again, I'll try to save out the chat here so you can see the responses. And everybody have a great afternoon. Oh.